In this movie, I'll introduce you to what I consider to be the preeminent tool for painting shapes inside of Illustrator. It does have an unfortunate name, however. It's this guy right there. It's called the Blob Brush tool, which implies that all it does is paint blobs, and that's not true. It doesn't do anything of the kind. What it does is it paints closed shape outlines, and it does a great job of smoothing out your paint strokes as well. And it is the tool we'll be using in order to create this fairly sophisticated design. Let me show you how it works. I've got this new document here. It's just 8.5 inches wide by 6 inches tall. And what I'd like you to do, if you're trying this tool out along with me, I'd like you to go down to the Blob Brush tool icon and double click on it in order to bring up this massive dialog box of options, most of which you don't need to worry about. What I'd like you to do, though, is turn on the Keep Selected checkbox. And that way, each path outline will remain selected after you get done painting it, and you'll have a better sense for what's going on. Go ahead and click OK, and then I'm just going to draw kind of this big sort of circular path. Now, I'm drawing with a mouse. I'm not using a drawing tablet or anything like that, so my results are not all that smooth. But notice, as soon as I release, Illustrator does two things. First of all, it smooths out my paint stroke, which is great. And then secondly, it goes ahead and creates a closed path outline. So this is a shape filled with black as opposed to an outline stroked with black. And if you go over to the Layers panel and twirl open the layer, you'll see that it's called Compound because it is a compound path. We have an outer outline that's filled with black and then an inner outline that's cutting a hole. Now I'll just go ahead and paint in a few more details, like I'll give this guy a mouth because he is a person, in case you didn't know where I was going with this. And I'll go ahead and give him a couple of eyes as well. He needs some pupils. Let's say I just go ahead and paint a hollow pupil like this, and it looks pretty garbagey. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on it. And notice that it's got a hole in it as well. Well, I could fill in that hole if I want to. I could just paint away the hole. What was formerly a compound path changes to just path here inside the Layers panel because it no longer has a hole inside of it. And then I could try to even out the edges a little bit if I wanted to. And I'll go ahead and paint in another pupil as well over here on the right-hand side. Maybe paint a nose as well. And notice as soon as I paint this nose next to his eye, the two path outlines join together into a single outline. And that's the way the tool is designed to work. As long as you're painting with a consistent color, in my case black, Illustrator's going to go ahead and join all those paths together. If you don't want them to join together, one option is to change your fill color. Just to make sure I'm not affecting the selected path, I'll press Control-Shift-A or Command-Shift-A on the Mac to deselect it. And then I'll go up here to the Control panel and click on that first swatch, and I'll switch to this sort of light beige color. Then I could go ahead and paint in his flesh, let's say. But I'd like to get a little more work done more quickly than having to scrub around in here like this. So I want to increase the size of my brush, and I can do that on the fly using the square bracket keys. And these are the keys that are to the right of the P as in Paul key on an American keyboard. So if you press the right bracket key, you'll increase the size of the brush, and I'm pressing the key many times here. If you press the left bracket key, you'll decrease the size of the brush. If you really want to go nuts, then you can press and hold the right bracket key, and it'll grow continuously. If you want to reduce the size of the brush continuously, then you press and hold the left bracket key. And so that looks pretty good. I'll just go ahead and paint around inside the guy's flesh, and you can see that the beige paths are now joining together, but we're not joining to the black paths at all. And you may be a little disturbed by what I'm doing here because I'm painting these flesh tones over the guy's eyes and head and all these other outlines, but then we can put them behind in just a moment. But for the present, I just want to make sure that I'm painting things in relatively well. We can always go back and change these things later on down the line. All right, once I get his flesh painted in just beautifully, as you can see here, I can right-click inside the flesh, choose Arrange, and then choose Send to Back, and it goes to the back of the stack. And I'm going to press the V key to switch back to my black arrow tool, and then click on an empty portion of the document to deselect that path outline. Now, I want to stress, even though you may not like what I've come up with so far, every single one of these items is an independent path outline. So I can click on this pupil, for example, and maybe move it to a different location if I don't feel like this guy's looking at me exactly the way I want him to. And I have complete control. I could grab this guy's head, for example, partially marquee everything, and I could go over to the scale tool, and I could drag in order to make his face bigger. I could drag inward to make his face smaller. I could come in from the side while pressing the shift key if I wanted to make his face a little skinnier, for example. So even though this is a pretty basic painting tool, it does result in vector-based path outlines that you can modify to any extent you like. Looking at this, you may say, well, Deke, you've got a few problems here. You painted the flesh outside of the face down in the lower left corner. We've got some flesh in the eyes. His eye's a little lumpy. That's where the blob brush's partner in crime comes in, and it's located directly below. That's the eraser tool, and I'll show you how that tool works in the next movie.